What's up, everyone? My name is Andrew Marshall. I am an accelerated evolution coach, and I do these interviews with the inspiring people that I know that have inspiring mindsets, keys to success, and that's what I focus on supporting my clients with. And all of these individuals are examples of empowered and powerful mindsets, right? And what they've been able to do in their lives. So when you listen to these interviews, listen closely, grab a notepad, have some fun, sit back, relax, and just be open to learning new things. In this interview today, I'll be interviewing Chael Sonnen. He is one of the most well-known MMA fighters in the world. He fought for the UFC title. He's had some big legendary fights in the UFC and in Bellator. He's a very high-level wrestler and grappler. You'll hear him speak about his achievements in winning the Abu Dhabi super fight in this interview. He's created multiple fighting promotions and grappling promotions, helping to grow the sport of grappling. The list kind of goes on. He's created successful businesses in his life. So he talks about some ways you can embody, a really good mindset of achieving things one day at a time, one step at a time. And eventually, if you're organized and focused, you can get yourself to where you want to be.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man?
Ready to go.
Hey, I want to appreciate you just taking the time to meet with me, do this interview. I was nervous to text you because I figured you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on. You're working on a lot of big things all the time.
For 10 years, and you've maybe 10 years wasn't enough to ask a guy to come on a show.
So, but then I thought it was awesome. It was so easy. It was so smooth. You were just like, yeah, man, let's do it.
Buddy, I'm always here for you. We're teammates. What do you think that word means, huh? You can't lean on a teammate. What the hell good is he for?
I love it. Yeah.
So where are you at, by the way? I like that set. Is that just at the house?
Yep. It's just my home office. Yeah.
It's perfect. I watched this thing, Andrew, totally random, but I think you'll understand it since you have a set at home and I have a set at home. But it was with Fox. Fox News was showing where some of their contributors were calling in from during the pandemic. And like this one guy, huge show too, Lou Dobbs, it was a very big show, but he was in the pantry of his house. They came in, they moved like the macaroni and cheese. They put a fake block in the background to look like books all stacked on. And he was just crammed in. But when the lights go, I mean, you wouldn't know if he had an acre behind him or if he was in his little pantry. But I thought it was pretty incredible in today's world what people are using to do for sets, but what they're forced to use for sets. And quite frankly, you get the right lighting, the right director, no one would know.
Yeah, just go for it. I don't know if you've heard of Kevin Nations. He's a really awesome business coach, but there's a phrase that he said that goes through my head almost every day. And he said, take imperfect action. And he said, you'll get a lot more done taking imperfect action every day than waiting for everything to be perfect and trying to take that perfect action. And so this is what I'm doing here. Like, I don't have some big, nice podcast set up, but I saw someone else doing this where they just do these interviews and put them on their YouTube channel. And I was like, shoot, I'm just going to go for it, start doing it and take that imperfect action. And it's been awesome so far.
Andrew, I really like that. I hope you don't mind if you hear me steal that over time.
Please do.
I think something like that thought to myself. I didn't have those words quite as beautifully said, but I do know people like that. I see them MMA, Jiu Jitsu, business, relationship, where I call them information gatherers. They're out there. They're going to read every book and they're going to go to every seminar and they got their degree and they got their master's degree, but that's not enough. They're still not ready. They're going to go get their PhD. And at some point you go, guys, stop gathering.
Exactly.
Just get out there and go. So I like how you said that imperfect action is much better than no action, right? Of course.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point. It's that taking action versus taking no action, So, yeah. So, part of what I do here in these interviews is I just love interviewing people with inspiring mindsets that are doing inspiring things, people that I know that I can continue to spread that inspiration, spread that message, talk about what it means to have a mindset that will give us the success that we really desire in our lives. And of course, success meaning being able to set out goals and achieve those goals fully, but also success in the bigger sense. Like, am I experiencing true fulfillment in my life? Am I helping to make the world a better place with what I'm doing? And something I love about what you're doing, especially with Submission Underground, is your focus on growing the sport of grappling. I've heard you say it over and over again. You're trying to grow the sport, create that universe, or just spread that universal rule set.
Yep.
And I love how you bring in big names on Submission Underground, but then you highlight local guys that wouldn't be getting seen otherwise. I'm one of those guys. And I've loved the way that show has helped me grow. Can you share a little bit about, what you're doing from your words of how you want to help grow the sport of grappling?
Sure. And that was an awesome compliment that you just paid me somewhere in there, whether that was on purpose or not, but that made me feel good. Thank you for saying that. I'll tell you this. The idea to go out and do a grappling show, I mean, right, that's not exactly reinventing a wheel, but I've been in MMA promotion since I was 24 years old. And when I go to MMA practice, Andrew, there'll be 6 guys there, myself included. There'll be a coach or 2. We'll have the building to ourselves. But if we go to put on an event, it's absolutely sold out in advance. Grappling practice is the opposite. We're teammates. We go down there could be 100 people in practice that day of all ages, where Coach Fabiano had, you guys on the wall till you guys get done and rotate just for space to work out. And I'm looking at it and going, there's 10-to-1 participants in grappling as there is compared to MMA. Now we just need to make that 10-to-1 fans of grappling. And I'm fully convinced that people do like grappling, that people understand grappling when they can follow the rules, when they know what's going on, when they know the name of a move or two. That's one thing that always made MMA or even boxing very simple. You could watch that on mute. In boxing, you got 2 hands, and they're both got to be above the waist, and anything else goes. And then in MMA, they kind of go a little bit anywhere before the referee blows a whistle or the horn goes off. Grappling, a little bit more sophisticated. There's a little bit higher level of intelligence. But if our announcers take the time to explain and educate the viewer, boy, those viewers, Andrew, they never leave. I see those numbers of who's new versus who's sustained. We're always working on new, but my brother, I will tell you, we are sustaining. Nobody is watching Submission Underground and then not watching the next one. And I just think it's a process of teaching them what we're doing. Then as the promoter, sure, I'll add the fun story. I'll add what this is about, or this guy said this to that guy. Okay, drama's a little bit good too. But as far as the sport to catch on, I fully believe, I've never quit believing, people will watch if they know what it is they're watching. And I do think that grappling is just a little bit more sophisticated than the other combat forms.
One thing that I've really loved about going on Submission Underground is it's put me under pressure to have to perform in front of a crowd, which I had done a little bit of that before, and I had competed in like tournaments, right, where there's a crowd there, but there's a bunch of different matches going on at once. The eyes aren't just all on you. And that's where I've had to work on where all those nerves come up because the eyes are on me. And you've competed. You're one of the most well-known MMA fighters in the world. You've competed on the highest levels. What are some things that you've done to help your mindset going out to perform in front of a crowd?
Well, I can tell you, I've read all the books and I've sat in front of all these people that I've looked up to, and I've asked them that same question. And they all give me the same catchphrases, the same buzzwords come out, from mental control to relax to breathing exercises. Man, none of it worked for me. I was terrified on day one. I fought 50 men by the time I retired. I was terrified on that last one. I never knew how to control that. And Randy Couture had given me some of the best advice, even if I couldn't equate it quite as well as he did. But Randy had broken it down scientifically, and a doctor had told him that the same chemical that your brain releases when you're scared is the exact same chemical your brain releases when you're excited. But that you had the choice. When you start to feel that nervous rush going through, you can tell yourself, no, I'm excited. And your body won't actually know the difference. Your mind will, but your body won't. So Randy began to convince himself, oh, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. I tried that. I got it to a degree. But ultimately, I felt like I got lucky about fight number 12 in, about around 2006. And I kept going for another 14 years. which was to just accept this is going to suck. I mean, at times, not everything is going to be moonlight and canoes. There's going to be some things that you're going to do to get a greater good, whether it's to walk out there, to show off, to get the pat on your back, to make your mother proud, whatever goes into it that makes you and I go out and walk into a cage, Andrew, that there's going to be some stuff that come along the way that I'm never going to master. It's going to smooth. One of the things that is going to separate us, the competitor, from the non-competitor. And, you'll meet a lot of street guys that are pretty tough in the streets. They got a pretty good reputation. But that is spontaneous, and that doesn't require any kind of control. A real tough guy can wait. A real tough guy will agree on the rules, the weight, weight class, and then the time. And that is generally what I feel separates, jumping up spontaneously and acting like a fool in the neighborhood is a lot easier to do than knowing something's coming, knowing who it's against, and making that walk on time.
It's funny, as you say that, the spontaneity of like a street fight, like I got in a lot of street fights when I was young, which I think is what led me into training and fighting and jiu-jitsu. And I remember multiple times where I just blacked out, and then there was another guy on the ground and I was standing there and I was like, holy crap. And there wasn't so much of that nervousness because everything happened so fast, but then when I step in to compete, it's like I'm aware of everything that's going on within myself. And so I guess it's just, again, what we were saying at the start, you just got to do it.
That adrenaline of knowing it's coming, that will create an exhaustion. If somebody jumped up and got in a street tussle, lack of a better word, but what we're talking about, he could go a minute or 2 minutes until somebody stepped in and broke it up. You go into actual competition where you're scared, where you're nervous, where you're now inserting and invoking stress. Stress is a chemical, and that chemical causes fatigue. It's one of the big reasons that combat sport that we do requires so much endurance, because when people are watching and you're stressed, boy, those muscles get tired much, much faster.
Yeah. And you mentioned back in 2006, and that takes me back to 2006 was the year that I started training. And I had played football for 6 years, and then senior year of high school came, football was done. And so I said, shoot, I got to figure out what I'm going to do next. So then I started seeing, you and Anderson Silva and Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell and Ed Herman and all these guys, on the UFC was starting to really grow. And so my friends and I started getting into that. And it was really cool to go on that sort of journey. From 2006, I grew up in Seattle. I started training jiu-jitsu then. I started boxing then. And then to move down to Portland, and all of a sudden there's like guys like you and Ed Herman and Fabiano, and I'm starting to train with you guys. That was really cool. And now this is fun. I get to do this interview with you, but it was that generation, that time frame where you guys were really, big names that was inspired me to start training and fighting.
I'll tell you, man, you're giving me great memories by saying that. I swear that was the golden era, at least for me. And if I had any regret, like, Genie pops out of a bottle and I get 3 wishes. One of my wishes would be, and my regret is, that I never had a camera back then. iPhones now all have cameras. We were still on flip phones, but I could have gone and I could have bought one or rented one. But the fights and the training and the coaching that I saw Evan Tanner as world champion fight Matt Lindland. I saw Dan Henderson fight Randy Couture. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. I saw Ed Herman fight Chris Lieben. Throw myself in the mix versus all of those guys. Bring in the Matt Horwiches and the Josh Haynes of the world. Rico Rodriguez coming to town. BJ Penn in the corner. Boss Rutan. I mean, I could name drop all day, but it's all gone. And if we would have just had the footage, you and I could retire. If we owned that footage, we'd find a way to sell it to the masses. Could you imagine how many people would like to see that? And all the names that were coming through Team Quest, Tim Sylvie and Josh Barnett in the corner pocket, getting rounds 3 and 4 in. It's just one of these things that I felt that we very much all underappreciated at the time, very much took for granted, look back on fondly, and I wish I'd have videotaped it.
It was probably all moving so fast at the time, I would imagine. The UFC was growing so much bigger.
Well, and nobody was as impressed. Like, even when I say that now, and the casual fan's going to hear that and go, oh my gosh, you saw that. Like, we had open gym rule. Anybody could walk in and watch. There was some chairs, only about 5 or 6, but they were never full. My mother used to come in and maybe she'd have somebody to talk to. I mean, as I look back now, what people are willing to buy on Saturday night for $50, no, we could have beat that 10-1 any given night at Team Quest, any night at Team Quest.
Yeah, so it's cool. Now I've gotten to train with you. I've gotten to train with Ed. I got to train with BJ when I was living in Hawaii. That was really cool. And his brothers. And I remember early on training with you, there was I think one time you got into my guard and I caught you in a triangle and you never let that happen again.
Really?
Yeah, there was only one time. You never let that happen again. And then there was one time I shot in on a single leg on you. And you had flipped me on my back faster than I could even recognize. And I never shot in on you again after that.
Each other out, huh?
We evened each other out. I was like, man, if my body didn't automatically know to tuck my chin and roll, I would have been on my head quick. I just remember how fast that felt. And I was like, oh, okay, there's that wrestling that I really needed to respect. And your fight with Anderson Silva for the title, even though in the end it didn't go your way, that fight, when I watched it, because I was watching it from a young guy's perspective, thinking Anderson Silva was invincible. And that's where I was like, oh, the importance of real effective wrestling in MMA. That was an eye opener for me, watching you dominate him for 5 rounds with your wrestling. That was really cool.
I will tell you that fight seems like a lifetime ago, and it seems like this morning all at once. I think about it every day. And I don't think about it with quite the hostility I did for a decade. I now have more fond memories. I think that comes with just getting older. But let me ask you a question. If you saw this going around the internet over the weekend, but Gordon Ryan slapped Andre Galveaux. Did you see it? And more importantly, what's the story here? Where did all this come from? What am I missing?
I didn't see it. You're the first person to tell me about that.
Oh, you haven't even read this?
No.
Okay. Let me get you close, and maybe we'll be starting a rumor, but I'm close enough on my details. I'm 85% there, maybe even more. It was like a fight to win, something on Flow Grappling, something along these lines. Who's number one, I think is what it was called. Mm-hmm. I don't believe Gordon or Andre were competing. I believe they were both there as coaches. Now, that matchup is going to be the super fight for 2021 Abu Dhabi. Cool. However, Andre Galveaux is not guaranteeing that because he's saying, I'm retired. And Gordon Ryan's like, you're not retiring as the king until I come in and beat you. Created some kind of attention. All I know from the video, though, is quite literally they're passing each other. It looked as though it was Galveau's idea. It looks as though Galveaux calls over to him, whether he wanted to say hello or I don't know. But Galveaux was the one that appeared to get Gordon's attention. Gordon walked up to him without ever pausing and just smacked and I mean hard, open hand, boom, but you could hear it. And it did not start a fight. It escalated a fight. I mean, Andre wanted no part of this. He started backing up. He started trying to get friendly, like, oh, calm down, calm down. It very much caught him off guard. As a matter of fact, it would be the opposite of promoting this match. If you wanted to see this match and then you saw the way Galveaux wilted, now you probably don't want to see the match. But so I only bring that to you because this wasn't some kind of try to look organic while really doing a viral promotional piece. It backfired. It went terrible. But Andre's a perfectly nice guy. I've known him for a number of years. I don't really like to see Gordon behaving that way. And I thought maybe you had some insight.
Well, I know that Andre Galveaux is a super respectful guy, right? He's a fierce competitor, but he's a super respectful guy. And so I don't see him appreciating that in any shape or form, or even being the kind of guy to want to feed any drama after that happening. But that's about all I can say. I don't know the context of that. I got to go look it up now because I'm hearing it from you for the first time.
Yeah. It's pretty well done. There's a couple of different camera angles. I mean, if you're into that, it's the kind of thing people will be into for the kind of people that are into that kind of thing. But quite frankly, I mean, jiu-jitsu does lack drama. It lacks it a lot of times, much higher on sportsmanship and honor than it is on drama. And every now and then it's fun to have a little bit of a, can two guys really want to compete? There can be only one champion. Abu Dhabi's around the corner. If that's what they're working towards, I'm compelled enough to ask you, and it sounds like together we're gonna have to research and maybe get to the bottom of it. But I'd like to know why Gordon slapped him, and I'd like to know why Andre didn't do anything about it.
I'd love to see that match. I can say that for sure. I'd love to see that match, and I would put my money on Gordon.
Sure. I think that's a good bet. Now we're talking Abu Dhabi rules though, where ultimately position is going to beat out because scoring's a little tough. I mean, that's very relevant.
Sure.
What rule set? If they were a
Sure.
1,700
Yeah.
round, it was only 5 minutes and right to the back, you might have a different answer. But under Abu Dhabi rules, I think Gordon would be the safer bet.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's really interesting. So another thing I'd love to ask you about is just you've had a long career, right, in sports, in business. You know, you run Submission Underground. You have Bad Guy Inc. You're a ESPN commentator. Is that correct?
Yep.
As well. What are some of the biggest challenges you've run into over the years in business, and what were the ways that you overcame those challenges,
Well,
or
I
even
will tell you
grew
right
through
out of the
them?
gate, I did not know that adults lied to other adults. I thought that was kid stuff. I didn't know adults teased adults, by example. I just remember growing up, whether it was my aunt or uncle or teachers or coaches, but anybody who was an adult that would always be yelling at somebody for lying or doing something dishonest or even being mean. It was always kids. And so the day I graduated high school, I thought I had left all that behind me. And I went right into the car business. Now, the car business was the dirtiest business I've been in, and I'm in the fight business. You know how dirty I could not believe the way that adults would hustle and lie and tease and manipulate others. I just thought it was something that kids do. And I grew up in a small town, country, a couple of horses in the yard, this type deal. And a man's word was everything. I mean, you lie to him, you get hung over that. You keep your word on a handshake, nothing written down. I didn't know this. And I ended up partners with a guy on a pizza restaurant of all things, right? All I know about pizza is that I like to eat it, but I was the money guy and he was going to run it. And this guy did every bad, whether you're calling it embezzling or stealing, or I mean, this guy was just bad people. And I did not know they existed. And I remember the disappointment I had. And even when I had to sit down with him and explain to him, I'm going this way and you're going that way, and should you follow, I'm going to have you arrested. I mean, it wasn't a great talk. But he was so confused. He didn't understand, and he didn't deny stealing. He didn't deny embezzling. He was just so surprised of my reaction when I caught him that, you know, in my life, I'd never seen anything like this. In his life, it was the only thing he knew. And he was very open in explaining this to me. And it did make me a lot more cautious. It makes me get lawyers and sit down and do contracts, but I don't prefer to work that way. I would prefer to be able to call somebody, yes, good deal or bad deal. I've made good deals, I've made bad deals, but I will honor it. I will honor it, but I expect the other guy too. And that's one of the bigger lessons as far as adapting and the times change, and you've got different technologies, things like this. I embrace that stuff. I think that it's very fun. I realize that the basic rule of evolution, you either evolve or you become extinct. I don't want to become extinct. I like to learn new things. Every single day I start my day, I have a shower, pour a coffee, and read a book every day. But I want to learn. I want to learn something new. It's hard. It gets harder and harder when you get out of college, you get out of school to force yourself to learn something new. But I like to learn new things. So I'm kind of forgot what your question was, but I think I answered it. I think you're asking me, what changes have I had to go through? And that's a couple of them.
Right. Learning, evolving, adapting, realizing that I've said this a long time ago, for a long time, that adults are kids with bills. That's kind of the difference there. But yeah, remembering to work with people who really embody my word is law.
Yep.
And that's something I focus on every day as well.
It's a big deal, man. And you largely do meet those, like say at our gym. I mean, I don't know if there's a dishonest guy in that gym. I haven't met him. It seems like there's something about jiu-jitsu guys, about blue collar guys that have like minds and like goals. I mean, we got teammates, Andrew, that you and I wouldn't even know their names. There's just too many. We don't ever lock our stuff up in the lockers or things like that. And you know what? I've never heard of anybody going through somebody else's locker. I mean, just a small example, but they don't go rummage through our parking lots. They don't do it. You just don't treat people that way. And we have a good team, though. Fabiano Schurner has a team in a family environment. I would just encourage other coaches and other teachers to take that same thing. We're not in the world's best part of town, and we're not always the nicest people, by the way, but we still do things honest. We still do things right. We still show respect to our teammate, to his belongings. We're trusting each other with some of our most valuable parts, meaning our body. but the teammate doesn't snap it if you don't tap on time. He doesn't put you to sleep if you don't choke on time. We operate in a sport that is largely based around trust. Can you trust the person you're going with? And if that answer was ever no, Andrew, we'd run that guy out. Can't have people like that.
That's what I was just going to say. In all the years in our team, I've never heard of one instance of someone getting stuff stolen out of their locker. But we have had a few instances of guys being out of integrity, and those guys were filtered out real quick, right? Because we have to keep the integrity of the space, of the team, and you just can't have that. So, yeah, hold that in high value in our team for sure.
Yeah. No, hey, it's one of the beautiful things of having a team. If you don't have that, if you don't have the camaraderie and trust, you don't have a team. You can put whatever you want on the wall. You can all wear matching t-shirts. You don't have a team unless you have trust. This is the one thing that I really appreciate, about this sport. I've been surrounded with other wonderful things, but maybe not since school. When I left school, now it's kind of elective. What group are you going to go with? Who are you going to spend your time with? What like-minded people are you going to associate with? It didn't used to be a choice for me. The teachers would put you here, the parents put you here, but after education, it now is on your own, and it's a very important that you choose the right people.
I completely agree. Are there any practices or disciplines that you take on each day? You shared you like to get up, you like to read certain books. Are there any other types of practices or disciplines you do to keep yourself sharp?
That would probably be the bigger one. And I'll tell you this, a little bit more to the story, but there's an app and it's called Blinkist, Blinkist. You may remember when you were in high school, but there was something called Cliff Notes.
Yep.
Where you take a whole book and condense it down in 15 minutes, you could read the Cliff Notes. So Blinkist is essentially Cliff Notes, but they'll read it to you. It's audible. So any topic you wanted, fiction or nonfiction, documentary, dietary, whatever your interest may be, you click on it and in 15 minutes, they will read the book to you. So I just find that to be a very good way to consume knowledge while waking up, while having some coffee. I usually get up with my dogs and we usually get up about 30 minutes before the kids wake up. So that's kind of my alone time. The lights are still down. The stars are still out. It's just kind of a special time of day. And, I do believe in getting 1 degree better every single day. Give you a quick business story for me. But when I got out of college, my father said, "What are you going to do?" I had the foggiest idea. What am I going to do, let alone what do I want to do? What alone am I talented enough to do? So he said, no, I need to hear what you're going to do. So I told him what it was. We were going to start a fight promotion. I'm going to start a fight promotion. I'm going to get the Roseland. I'm going to sell tickets and we're going to have merchandise. And here's what we're going to do. And he goes, okay. And my dad was leaving for work that day. And he said, when I come home today, I want you on a paper to have written down every single thing that you need to do to make this happen. So I did. And that frankly didn't take me all that long, but I wrote it down. He came home. I showed him. Okay, that was the end. We never talked about it again. The next day he got up. He grabbed that list and he said, when I come home today, I want one of the things on this list checked off. I want you to look and get it done. So I said, okay. So the next day we played that same game. Well, before you know it, I'm 20 days in, which is only 3 weeks. I got 20 things done. I'm ready to throw my first fight. And I really appreciated the way that my father had that approach. I mean, some things look huge. It's the old adage, how does a goldfish eat a shark? Answer, a lot of little bites. And if you could just start taking those little bites each day, or now as I'm an adult and talk to my children, 1 degree, you got to get 1 degree better today than you were yesterday. Just one. Right now we're working on pull-ups. We're working on some body mechanics, sports stuff, but that's okay with kids. I'm also working with my son. Instead of holding his fork like a savage, he's learning to hold his fork like an adult. And he's only got to do 2 bites and then he can go back to savage. But tomorrow we do 3 bites the right way. I only bring that to you because I think that that's very good for encouragement. And I think that it's very realistic in life. And we understand this because you and I came through a belt system, but we didn't have to become masters on day one. We could start advancing to it over the years. But much like that goldfish, you take enough bites, the shark's gone.
One, what you said in there too, realistic. I mean, really what you're saying right now, that's the only way it does work.
Sure.
So your dad was clearly an awesome father, an awesome coach in, helping you, take those initial steps after college. That's really cool.
Yeah, and thank you
Really
for paying
cool.
him that compliment. I lost him way too early and never even got to thank him. He was gone. He was gone right after
Oh
college. We
wow.
got this thing done, and then he got hit and passed. But I was wondering, Andrew, how many more tricks did he have like that? How many more things was he going to teach me? Because that's something I never would have done. I never would have made a list and each day just gotten one. I would have stared at the list, gone, there's 20
Right.
things. I have no money. I have no time. I guess I can't do any of it. But it really doesn't work that way. You show up to practice every day, something good happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Andrusco is a great example, our teammate that just got his black belt. But all Tom did for his secret is every day he came to practice. That was it. Everything else is on the coach.
Consistent.
Tom just listened. Tom just listened
Yeah.
and reacted. This was the one part of his day he didn't have to plan. He didn't have to strategize. You want to know how to get a black belt? Show up here every day at 3:00. Rest will take care of itself. And over time, it did.
Yep. Consistency. That's what I tell the guys all the time. I still have to remind myself that, but it's that constant practice, constantly aim and readjust.
Yep.
What are some things that you're really excited about right now that you're working on?
Okay, well, we got a Submission Underground coming up. As a matter of fact, we just did a deal with the UFC, but we will have a Submission Underground every month for the rest of 2021. That's going to kick off on March 28th. We've got in the main event, we're going to bring in Boogie to take on Mason. Roxanne Modafferi is going to come out. She's going to take on Amanda Higgins. We have a couple other special matches that I'm keeping in the hole. We were this close. We didn't get it, but we were going to bring in Clay Guida to take on Chris Sunshine Lencioni, which I think anywhere you have.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think you're going to have an energy. I think that you're going to have some fun. Ishii's coming back out. He's going to take on Varela. We're working on a tag team match with the Simones. I was going to say Simone brothers.
Yeah.
Cousins. Ricky and John are cousins.
Yeah.
Still looking for their opponents there. So it will be the Submission Underground that you were used to. You're going to see the names. You're going to see the action. And thank God we're even going to come back with the tag team. My personal favorite thing, tag team.
Yep. You said Clay Guida. That's another guy I used to watch, back in that previous generation of fighters. It was a really fun guy to watch. So I haven't heard his name in a long time. So that'd be really cool to see him, if and when it
I'll
works.
tell you what, I haven't heard. I'm friends with Clay since about 2009. I haven't tried that number in a decade, and I didn't even know it was him. And so I was texting him, but it was staying in green and it wasn't going to blue. And so I didn't know if he had an Android or an iPhone or has a different number, and I'm reaching out to nobody. But he fought on a UFC 2 weeks ago. That was the first I had seen Clay in a period of time. I'm like, Clay Guida versus Sunshine. Let's do this. And they both accepted, but Clay is going on like some rafting trip where he's the guide. It's something he does for a living. And he's already committed that weekend, taking someone salmon fishing or something. The point is, we're not going to get Clay on that date, but we are going to have plenty of other big names.
That's awesome. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I got for you.
You want to know a match we've struck out on a million times is Lovato Jr. Lovato Jr. versus Craig Jones. And I can't figure out, I used to think Lovato just didn't want to come and do SUG, whether he just didn't want to travel or maybe he didn't like the skills and was too polite to tell me. But I'm starting to understand, no, it's the Craig that he doesn't want. Think maybe if I offer him somebody else, he can come back out. There's something about Craig Jones. You'd be shocked how hard it is to get a match for Craig Jones, just because that skill is so unique, everything below the waist, and so dangerous. That's the other side of it. The audience doesn't really see it. It looks real viewer friendly. But if you look at the rules where you're only allowed to choke things and break limbs, it's pretty vicious rules. And a lot of people don't want in there with Craig. I think Lovato is just one of the guys.
That would be an incredible match. I see why you're searching for that match. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't say I remember, again, going back, it was like 15 years ago, I watched Andre Lovato grapple at a tiny tournament in Seattle, a super fight. He's a guy that's been around a long time, really incredible competitor. But yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't want to come out and go against Craig. Why not try? You're at that level.
Match. Yeah, it seems like a lot to gain there and not a lot to lose. Craig's name is so big in that community.
Right. Yeah. And there's nothing really to lose.
I've had a harder time. Again, we've promoted 116 mixed martial arts shows. That's culminated in 18 UFC veterans, a UFC judge, and 2 timekeepers, of which my mother is one of them. But I mean, guys have really been discovered through this, and we have sold out building after building, done a great job, never had a complaint. You would not believe how much easier it is for me to match make a mixed martial arts show than it is a grappling show. I mean, those grapplers get so sensitive on so many different things that I never would have even factored in, where they don't want to put it on the line. MMA guys will go do it, including losing painfully. Getting a grappler to go do something where he could suffer defeat, particularly with some of those name guys, man, it gets weird. It gets really weird really fast.
Where do you see the sport going? Do you have like a farther down the road vision for how you want to help grow grappling?
I do, but in the short term, we are trying to get to be a weekly event. That is what we're working on right now. And, you know, to show you how far we came, but when we first started, we were 2 shows a year. That moved to 3, that moved to 4. Yeah. Last year was when I finally put my foot down and said, I'm out. I am not doing this level of participation for this little of participation. It's a monthly show, or I got to go find somebody else to partner with. And they said, okay, we'll do it every month. So just to remind you, in 2020, we had a show every single month. In fact, we held a total of 13 events in a year that had 12 months on the calendar. So the same thing is going to happen this year. January and February, there were some things going on internally. I'll leave it at that. But now we're going to kick off, and we're not going to look back. But looking to 2022, I believe, is when we will start having a weekly event. And when we get to that, you've heard of the Apex, right? The UFC's own. We will have that same thing out here in the Northwest. We will have our own dedicated location, our own dedicated warm-ups with kitchen and place for the guys to stay. And then every week, people will just fly around from around the world. We'll grab them at the airport, stick them out there, and ultimately figure out who the champion is.
So cool, man. Well, I hope it's not too long before you can have a crowd back in there, because the energy was always so cool.
It's fun, particularly for grappling on a Sunday, right? I mean, it was just the right crowd. It wasn't that rowdy. You had mom and dad, you had grandma, you know, everybody's cheering for their friend or neighbor, and they're taking photos. It's just the right energy that sport really needs. I love it. I'm with you, man. I can't wait to pack a building.
Yeah, that's awesome. What else do you have going on? What else are you working on for yourself? Do you see any more competition for yourself?
No, I don't know what happened. So I was the Abu Dhabi super fight champion. I beat a gentleman named Leo Vieira, and they even put me on the stand. They put me on the stand, and everybody showed me a nice moment, and my uncle took my photograph, and they gave me this big, beautiful medal. I thought that was to be defended. I thought that had a lineage behind it. I thought you were the super fight champion until somebody beat you and you were no longer super fight champion, but something happened and that wasn't the case. And that was back in 2017. So when 2019 rolled around, I was still an active competitor, and I was waiting on my phone call and my plane ticket. And I finally got a hold of Renzo Gracie. Said, Renzo, I don't know who to talk to. I don't know anybody at Abu Dhabi. Who am I taking on? And Renzo said, they haven't called you yet? And I said, no. And he goes, that's not good news. Let me find out. So he called the sheik, called me back, said, Chael, they don't have you on the card. And I said, well, what's this business with the super fight champion? From the history of this sport, there's been a lineage. I feel I'm obligated, or you're obligated to give me a match. They said, we're not doing it that way anymore. So apparently I'm retiring undefeated super fight champion of Abu Dhabi. Can you believe that?
That's not bad.
Super fight champion.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching this interview. I hope you feel uplifted and inspired by what was shared. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel to make sure that you see all the other awesome videos that we have coming up.